All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to our webinar on emerging lessons from summer youth employment in the age of COVID-19. We're excited to have you with us. I'm Mike Swigert, Senior Program Manager for Youth Employment from the Aspen Institute Forum for Community Solutions, standing in for my esteemed colleague Monique Miles, who is unfortunately unable to be with us today. We're delighted to co-sponsor this event with our partners at CLASP, and I'm joined by the wonderful Keisha Bird, CLASP's Director of Youth Policy, as your host for this event. We're also grateful for the partnership and support of JPMorgan Chase & Company in bringing this event to you today. This is a follow-up to our online event on May 28th on this same topic, and we're fortunate to bring back 5 speakers representing communities from the Opportunity Youth Forum and communities collaborating to reconnect youth networks, to share close to real-time updates on this work. As Keisha put it, 2020 has been a summer like no other, as communities across the nation grapple with the coronavirus and an unprecedented economic crisis, both of which intersect with our nation's long-standing scourge of racism and other systemic inequities. At the same time as youth and young adult unemployment has skyrocketed, young people are at the forefront of the swelling movement for racial justice. Amid all this, summer youth employment programs can play an important role in advancing equitable career, education, and well-being outcomes for young people from low-income communities and communities of color as part of a wider ecosystem of opportunities. By sharing emergent learning from Philadelphia, Detroit, Albany, Los Angeles, and Boston, based on the work of the past few months, we hope to inform the field and the work underway in high schools and post-secondary institutions this fall, that of year-round training and career development programs, and planning among practitioners, systems leaders, policymakers, and funders for summer 2021. Although we don't pretend to have all the answers to the common challenges we're facing, we're committed to learning among our networks and the field. And we hope that today's dialogue is practical as we continue to wrestle with common challenges and we continue to study this work over time. So for our event today, we'll start off with a youth and young adults panel facilitated by Keisha. Then I'll facilitate a discussion bringing back together leaders from programs and systems who joined us back in May. And then we'll bring back all of our panelists for a discussion and have plenty of time for audience question and answer, before closing out with reflections and a view of the work ahead. So with that, Keisha, I'll pass it to you for a quick engagement with the audience before our first panel.
Yes, thanks, Mike, and thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. If you are on the Northeast Coast, you are in the middle of thunderstorms, but nevertheless, we're going to be here to talk about summer youth employment, summer jobs, and the experiences that communities and young people had in this unprecedented summer. So everyone put your name and your organization, or where you're calling in or dialing in or zooming in from in the chat. We have a question for you. So what is something that surprised you in your community this summer? Or what is something that happened that was innovative this summer? So just put it in the chat. We're actually going to keep a record of this. We'd love to see the different responses that everyone comes up with. All right, let's see what we're seeing here. All right, people are still introducing themselves, but definitely, in the chat, please share what is something that happened innovative in your community or something that surprised you this summer. Okay, I see lightning speed, virtual program and recruitment. I saw that, it's going pretty fast. I see a couple of other things. People are still introducing. Oh, COVID-19 precautions. All right, youth were happy about the opportunity. Oh, okay, so young people practicing social distancing and being COVID ready. That's great. Some of our adults weren't doing that in different places. Being able to engage, unprecedented level of collaboration. Yes, so we're going to get into some of that this afternoon because what we do know, and which is one of the reasons why we wanted to host this conversation, is that communities, young people, all of you out there were just incredibly resilient incredibly flexible in these times. And so we want to be able to talk about a little bit of that, as well as to help influence how policy investments get shaped in the future. So, Mike, I guess I can turn it over now to get started on the youth and young adults panel. I know we had a couple of folks who were still trying to get in, but I think we have everyone in now. So we're just going to have a conversation with Lukey Forbes, Justice Pass. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, Justice, but Taylon Hodges and Johnson Lee. And all four of these young people were engaged in either a summer youth employment or summer jobs program, and or leading community and social justice work in their communities. And so I will have them introduce themselves, but first, if you all will just come off of mute and off of oh, hey, Taylon, good, you're able to show yourself, great. So we have everyone. Okay, so I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. And so to get started, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you did this summer. We know that this summer we had a pandemic. We have racial justice uprisings. We have, state and local budgets strapped. Maybe there is a summer program, maybe there isn't. Maybe there are jobs, millions unemployed. And you all have been in the midst of this. So we just want to hear from you and a little bit about your experiences. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you were engaged in this summer. And how about we start with you, Justice?
So my name is Justice Passe. My program is through PYN, which is Philadelphia Youth Network, and my internship was at Bank of America. The internship was a really amazing experience. This is actually my second time. It was really amazing because it really taught me how to be more financially fit, especially because my family isn't always financially stable. So learning these skills really helped me, pass it on and also create a legacy for myself and for my family to really continue on and really trying to, build something for each other. So that was really amazing. And then also was able to teach financial literacy to my community as well. So.
Good, excellent. All right, Johnson, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Johnson Lee. I'm a recent graduate from Boston Day and Evening Academy, and I'll be a freshman at UMass Boston this coming January. And over the past summer, I had the luxury of interning for Vertex Pharmaceuticals. Though it would usually be on site, this summer, due to the pandemic, it was remote and I got to work from home, where I got to still be able to be involved in the corporate sort of setting, as well as being able to work in an at-home lab setting as well. It was very fun and very interactive, and I learned a lot. And it also helped me learn how to be self-accountable and make sure that all my independent tasks were done in a timely manner. And most importantly, I think it also taught me how to communicate effectively, especially in a virtual setting.
Great, thank you. We're looking forward to hearing more about that. Taylon.
Hello, I'm Taylon Hodges. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. My organization is Cody Rouge Youth Council under the Cody Rouge Action Alliance, and my summer program was the Girl Detroit Youth, Girl Detroit Young Talents. This summer was pretty interesting. I got to work on different things that I hadn't before, such as video editing, audio mixing, different things like that, as well as dive more into the subjects of COVID-19 and racial tension and injustice. We got to interview other people our age, other young people, and we also got to make different presentations and videos that we plan to share through Wayne State University.
Thank you. Well, I think that flows right into Lukey, you introducing yourself to the group.
My name is Lukey Forbes. I am the administrative assistant for the Summer Youth Program out in Albany, New York. I also was involved in a lot of the protests after hours during my community time, where I'm one of the leading community activists within the Black Lives Matter movement out in the Capital Region. We've traveled from Saratoga all the way to Kinderhook throughout the whole capital region, just bringing to light the injustices and the discrimination as well as the racism that is embedded in all of those counties.
Thanks, Luki. So now we're just going to ask y'all some questions, and everyone just jump in as you feel. So tell us about how was summer, right? And what were some of the challenges that you had to navigate this summer? Anyone can go first.
Yeah, I think I'll take a first crack at this. So my summer honestly was a roller coaster, to say the least. It started off with the hot topic of the social injustice and the death of George Floyd. And that was all across social media. I honestly couldn't get away from it. Same with all the bad news of Corona, couldn't get away from it. And it seemed like it was a hot topic that had to be discussed. And though I didn't want to avoid it, or honestly, I didn't want to avoid it, it was one of the issues that I do want to address as well. But right after that, I started interning at Vertex, and it came to my knowledge that they also were trying to address that issue as well. In fact, I was in a Zoom earlier this morning with the Mass STEM Advisory Council to kind of discuss moving forward how to deal with the social injustices and also how to help underprivileged students. So to continue on with the question, because I realize I'm rambling, it started off kind of on a bad foot, to be honest, the pandemic, the social injustices. But after that, it started to really come up. I got more involved with my work and I got more involved with my community. And from there, it kind of like uplifted my summer. And though it wasn't the summer that I wanted, it was a summer that I definitely needed because it taught me a lot on how to grow individually and also how to grow professionally.
Good, thank you, Johnson. Anyone else want to jump in? How was your summer and what were some of the challenges that you had to navigate?
I could go. So I think the transitioning to, in-person to virtual in any aspect, whether that be school or even like working, it was kind of hard for me because it was just like relatively new to trying to have that, that motivation, right? Because usually I had, have extracurriculars, I have my job to really say like, okay, I have something to wake up for. Like that was my motivation. But I had to change over to self-discipline, right? So self-discipline over, motivation, right? Motivation is like a spark. It doesn't always last. It's a flare. But so I really had to learn the self-discipline of like, okay, I have to do this, this, and this. I have to go on a Zoom call and just keep myself going, right? Because I won't always have that motivation to get up in the morning or to do this task, right? But it really takes self-discipline and self-regulation to really be like, okay, I need to do this, this, and this for today, and this is how to keep going, right? And really set those goals. It was really hard at first, but I really got used to it, where I actually structured my, my schedule, even more so than before, right? I was actually more busy during COVID-19, during the pandemic than I was before, which is pretty crazy. I was finding out ways to really occupy my time and trying to keep myself motivated through self-discipline, and it went really well. It's still hard, in fact, but I'm still working on it, and it's something that I'm, constantly always working on, and I'm willing to keep going, during this time.
Now I'm gonna pull on some of those themes that both of y'all share, but let's open it up to Taylon and Luki. How was your summer and what were some of the challenges that you were navigating?
For me, my summer was pretty interesting, as I said in my intro. The most challenging part for me wasn't working. Well, it was working online, but it wasn't working online. It was getting to work with other people online because I am online schooled. I go to Michigan Connections Academy, and I'm in my senior year of high school. So I'm pretty used to working online. But for other people who aren't used to this experience, it was kind of hard getting to help them get used to the experience in terms of like sharing files, looking at other people's work, sharing information, even getting on Zoom calls. It was a struggle throughout the whole program because a lot of us had different struggles that added on to it. But I would say besides that, it was a pretty nice experience this summer. I got to do a lot of different things that I hadn't before, and I got to make some new acquaintances and work closer with people I had already known. So besides the working over the internet issue that we had, I wouldn't have any other complaints about this summer. It was a nice program.
Thanks, Taylor. Lukey.
This summer was really interesting. If you Google me, you'll see a lot of the stories about it. We made a lot of headlines, and it was really interesting with the BML movement. I could relate to a lot of people here with COVID being something different, trying to deal with work as well as being involved in activism. Trying to find that balance was kind of basically the mental standpoint that I felt like I had to choose a little bit between helping the youth and also fighting for social justice until I was able to really get my schedule in line with being able to do it all. And I practice something called polyphasic sleep, where you only sleep for 3 hours a day and 30-minute naps. And it really helps you. It's actually studies to say that show that it helps increase the cognitive and how quickly you can think. Just basically my struggle was finding that balance between activism as well as doing the actual good work, as well as still doing outreach during the times that I can't do outreach. Right now, I'm currently going around just counting all the broken streetlights within the city so that we can encourage the city to actually turn those back on to increase the amount of light in certain areas to basically prevent crime in another way. So it's doing the work on all levels to basically help the community. And that was basically my biggest thing, that COVID did get me to get a lot more busier, like the young brother said. And it also helped me learn how to schedule better, because this helped me be able to really schedule. But those were my biggest challenges in the beginning, as well as dealing with all the rhetoric from the BLM movement as well, because it has a lot of negative condescendings with it from what people see on the media, but it doesn't really portray every single last protest. 93% of the protests across America have all been peaceful. And that just says a lot about the ones that have been violent, which have been shown have been antagonized by police. And again, it sticks on the work itself, just what's going on right now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for sharing. So I covered a couple of different things, the moving from in-person to virtual and the transition, navigating being in the pandemic, COVID-19, as we all are, as well as, protests and confronting and being at the front lines of racial injustice. So who or what helped you to kind of navigate and to transition in these challenges? How, who helped you to adapt, or what helped you to adapt? You already started with kind of mindset and sleep pattern, but Taylor, I want to come to you if you want to jump in, start this, because you talked a little bit about how you had a good summer, but what helped you to adapt to some of the challenges and the changes?
For me, I would say that it would be my mentors. My mentor, Ms. Sade Ward, and my other mentor, Dr. Truman Hudson. He's from Wayne State, and Ms. Sade Ward, she is from Cody Ridge Action Alliance. They really pushed us to get comfortable with Zoom meetings. We would do Zoom meetings outside of the programs that we were working with. Zoom is just to check in, really helped us, and they really helped us get comfortable with it. Dr. Hudson, during the GDYT program, he also connected us with different people on how to use the internet in different ways to research, and that really helped, because I know that it was a struggle for my I would say classmates and I to get used to doing a program like this online, because in previous years at GDYT, we would always meet in person. So I would definitely say my mentors, they really helped me a lot.
Good. Who wants to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind stepping in really quickly. Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of what Taylor said, I think the internet really helped a lot with me transitioning to online learning and online, working and stuff. And also having the community around me when I was interning for Vertex, where everyone kind of we're on the same level and we're on the same playing field. Though none of us knew what to do, but we made sure that everyone knew that, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing either, so you're not alone. And I guess just like the power of social media, the internet, and the small communities that I built, just knowing that I'm not alone definitely helped me change my mindset and help me adjust into virtual online life.
Yeah, and Justice, you talked about the motivation and being self-motivated, but is there a who or what that helps support that?
It's I would say it's definitely my mentors. Like this is a person named Shauna. She has a nonprofit organization that helps students be accustomed and really learn financial literacy, right? So when I look at her and she like what she speaks on, it's really about having a better understanding of yourself, right? So I can only go for so long and like watching Netflix or on a couch until I feel like I need something that's a doing, like I need a purpose, So that's what drives me. I can only do that for so long until I'm just like, I have to do something that has meaning for myself and for my community. So with that, with the tool being financial literacy and then the purpose, my community, I took that and started teaching my community about financial literacy, how to manage your credit cards and stuff like that, how to really start a business even, where I incorporated my learnings from Bank of America, while also in all my endeavors in entrepreneurship. I incorporated that both and started teaching classes from all over Philadelphia. I was helping kids understand how to manage their money for college. I remember one kid was like, oh my God, I think I'm gonna be screwed for college. I don't know how much I'm paying. And I helped them really get a better understanding of okay, this is your financial aid. This is how you really understand how much you're really paying. Come to find out he wasn't paying that much as he thought he was, but it was just helping my community really understand and get a better understanding of their finances so they could be more prepared for the future. And that's really what motivated me and kept me going, even during these weird times in COVID-19.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe you can teach me some lessons too. So Luki, you talked about the balance, work and life and community and all of that in between. What was who or what that helped you to navigate some of those challenges you experienced?
So it was like everyone's been saying, mentors. And I've had the pleasure of getting a new mentor in every city that I've been in thus far with this movement. This movement has not only, I was able to meet a lot of young people who have been extremely motivated and really, really dedicated to causing change in society. I've also met a lot of older school people who have also led the way into what we're doing now. And I've been taught by both people younger than me, people older than me, people my age. And we all kind of just keep each other motivated in the things that we're trying to do here. Like I said before, I've been in scenes where police literally just antagonized the situation while we were peacefully protesting. White supremacy members have produced weapons on us while we were just peacefully protesting in the city of Troy. When we were doing a protest, it was 11,000 people, and the team that I led were able to basically identify a militia that were there with automatic weapons there to attack people. And with things like that going on in our society, and I'm still the administrative assistant for the summer youth program, where I have to go about creating programs to better assist my city and the youth within my city, is just seeing what they're up against and seeing the actual battle that they face within our city. They are going to work and they're trying to learn these skills so that they can better develop themselves. Meanwhile, there are people literally fighting against them and trying to keep them in oppression through litigation and different policies and restrictions on our people.
Thanks, Luki. You painted a really, really vivid picture, and I'll hope that we circle back to that in a second. But I want to pivot to Justice Johnson and Taylon, so you could talk specifically about your summer youth employment experiences. So for all of you, how does your experience this summer fit into your life goals or your career plans? Everybody, jump in. Well, Justice,
So
you're shaking your head. You want to go first?
yeah, so so my internship at Bank of America wasn't my first. It was actually my second time. But virtually this year it was very different, of course. And they really focused on professional development and personal development. Professional in the realms of like what skills that you need to basically pilot yourself in a career, and anywhere you go, whether that be in finances, whether that be in medical, or whatever you want to go. So they've honed on skills like leadership, active listening, customer care, and that's really like just a few things that they focused on that really helped me understand, how to care for a client, and also how to manage myself and regulate myself, because you have to be able to put your best foot forward all the time, and also make sure that you understand the client and what their needs are, and make sure that you give them the value that that the company stands for and what you stand for always. So this experience was amazing. They touched on a lot of topics like on unconscious bias, where sometimes you're not always aware of the things that your habits, right? We did an activity where it was like make separate groups, 3 groups, split up however you want, right? So we did that in 3 rounds, and one was like 3 emojis, the other one was like just like random things, and then the last one it was just like just open for anyone to make groups out of anywhere. And we all thought like, what's the point of this, right? And then she said there's a reason why you all chose that, right? Some people said, oh, because I like the emoji, the one emoji more, the circle emoji more than the heart emoji. But if we thought a little bit deeper down, there was a reason why we, touched on that. It's because maybe we like our friends a little bit more. That's why we want to make a group with them, or maybe you wanted to try something new.
Mm-hmm.
So if we relate it back to, our, society, sometimes we have those unconscious biases that we're not even aware of. And they said not to not to target anyone, but it's just create awareness, right? Because you're not always aware of the things that you're taught in your environment, and that's okay. It's just, but what you need to do is one, become aware of it, and then educate yourself, and then move on in a direction where it's much better for to adapt more better habits, than that's what you had, So that was really amazing.
Yeah, thanks. So a lot of transferable skills that you can take with you no matter what you end up doing. How about you, Johnson and Taylin? How does your summer experience fit into your life goals or your career plans or lessons and skills that you've gained that you think will help you in the future?
Yeah, I think I'll jump in on this one. Honestly, I don't know where to start. There was a lot that I did this summer that was really amazing. But I think the big things that I did coming into Vertex was they taught me a lot of transferable skills, just like you said. Vertex was partnered up with Boston Debate League, and we had a few, Zoom meetings with professional debaters, I guess is the best way to say it. And it taught us that debating is not only just in debate tournaments or between lawyers, but it's in life. And if you ever want to get like a promotion, or if you want to ask your parents for an extra $20 or whatever, you got to debate. So, learning how to debate was really fun, and we got to like have an in-house mini debate on which is better, Takis or Cheetos, and it was fun and all. And another great thing was that I was still able to, look at this internship as an opportunity to progress professionally. They taught us how to network, and even though we weren't on site and we weren't meeting face to face and shaking hands or anything, we still had the same professionality, the same formality, and it was great because my network has kind of grown a lot more than I expected it to over this past summer. Even though I was expecting it to be on site, however, due to the virtual life, I didn't expect myself to have such a big network that I've grown. And to answer the question of how does my internship this summer help progress my career in the near future, I hope to, work in the medical field sometime after I graduate. And, I feel like this internship was really great because not only did it help me learn about the science aspect, but I think it also helped me prepare for the worst when it comes to, later on down the road, there could be another pandemic, and I'd be ready for it this time. I know how to handle everything virtually. And outside of that, it transfers from virtually to in reality as well.
Mm-hmm. Good. I like those skills and the way you both talked about the adaptability of the things that you've learned, something that was fun, but that really taught you real world lessons. Taylor, how about you?
Um, this summer we worked on a lot of emotional development, as well as, getting in touch with your community. For the past 2 years, I've been working with community framework and neighborhood framework and development to try to improve the neighborhood that we live in, and getting to do the interviews that we were able to do, and talk to other young people between the ages of 18 and 25. We were able to really see what they wanted in the community and what they expected out of this pandemic and different things like that. Um, Besides the neighborhood framework and community development aspect of it, I got to work with audio mixing and video editing, and that's something that I'm interested in because I want to be a musical producer when I get older. And different things like that, it has helped me, get used to what it might be like when I get older, when I work on those different type of things, and I have that career. And the emotional support, I feel like that will really help me with another career path that I plan on taking, which is a marine biologist, because for me, I'm very emotionally involved with animals, so I feel like the emotional support will help me on my jobs when I need to help a sick animal or when I need to rehabilitate an animal. So I feel like all of the subjects I worked with, though, can be used in every part of the career path I plan on taking. So yeah, I feel like that's pretty much.
Good, good. So we're gonna get ready to wrap up, and everyone keep dropping your questions. We're gonna go to the second panel and then do questions all together. But this is what we call lightning round, y'all. So we gotta kind of answer pretty tightly. But just wanted to, you can start off, Lukey, too. What's one thing that you would share with the city leaders that we have on this Zoom? We have foundation and funders on the Zoom, policymakers and other program leaders. What's one thing that you want to share with them about your summer experience? And we talked about a lot of things.
Yeah.
So Lukey, you kick us off and we'll do a lightning round.
So what I would like to share with everybody on this, I have a few things that I would like to share. Definitely look at my Facebook. You'll see a lot more. It's my first and last name. But the things that I would really like to share are, we all contribute to society in our each and every way. And we have to be willing to step aside of what is going on to do what is right. And there are a lot of people that side with policy over morals. And we need to get back to more morals and looking at things as far as human rights as humans and the rights that they deserve, instead of looking at them as laws and policies that are written to literally keep a group of people oppressed through words. When we are all people, we are all human beings in this world. And we have rights as world beings. And this is stuff that is going on within the UN. They are arguing for the rights of every individual in this planet to be treated the same way. And that is something that is not being indoctrinated into everyone's policy. That is something that is not being indoctrinated into everyone's beliefs. And that is not okay when there should be no such thing as racism, because this is the world of so many different cultures. Yeah. Personally, I am in New York City. This is the home of immigration. This is the home of integration. This is the home of diversity. But I've still seen white supremacy just openly blatant. And I've seen policymakers side with them. Recently in Rensselaer, there was a law passed that gives the, I'm sorry. Yeah,
sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to cut you off. You were, no. I wanted to thread because we have to do lightning round. So, but what you said was so powerful. And we're going to put all the contact information in your contact information in the chat. But what Lukey said is so powerful. One of the reasons when we were putting this whole session together is that we couldn't just get on and just talk about, oh, these are just the skills that happen, you know, that young people learn, and this is what happened in summer, without acknowledging what really happened. So we really appreciate you sharing, and we will put put your contact information, and you do in the chat your Facebook links, because I know people want to follow up and learn more and hear more about the work you've been doing across the state. But Taylor, Johnson, Justice, lightning round. What's one thing you want to leave with the audience?
Oh, you could go.
I'm sorry. One quick thing I would say would be to allow the youth to be a part of the conversation and a part of the decision making. That is something that all of the programs that I have been involved with this summer and over the past 2 years have done a good job with. Just allow us to, have our say and allow us to be able to voice our opinions, because I feel like a lot of people don't take accountable what we feel and how we are dealing with things going on, and even certain things in everyday life, such as like the neighborhood framework programs that I am working with. Just to be quick, allow the youth to be a part of the conversation.
Like that. Johnson.
So I think the best way to address this question would be to get involved with your community. Coming from Boston, from the urban Boston, I can see that there's a lot of disparities between communities, and that kind of plays a big role in, how students and not even just students, but just people in Boston are affected by it. So I do want to keep this brief though, but if you do get involved with the communities, find gaps where, whether it's funding or maybe there's a program that, kids can get into, find the gap in your community and see what you can do to kind of like uplift and maybe fund an after school program, maybe have an all year internship, anything like that. Please do be involved with your community. And I think in the long run, it will pay off quite immensely.
Thank you, Johnson. And Justice, bring us home. What's one thing you want to leave with the group?
Another thing is, outside of the realm of getting involved in your community, I think it really starts with your circles as well. It starts with like not normalizing certain things, and that could be really anything. So it really starts with your community, and first it starts with educating yourself, and then educating your peers, right? If you don't see something that's right among your friend group, disturb it so that it won't happen again, or educate them, So that's really starts within your friend group, and then if that were to happen, then that friend, whoever that circle they hang out with, they're going to pass that on too. So on a smaller level, you can get involved by educating yourself first, and then educating your peers and making sure they share the same values as you, or they're doing the things that's right or that's morally right for the community and for yourself.
All right. Well, thank y'all for having this conversation with me and for sharing your experiences and a little bit about what you did this summer, what you learned, what challenges you overcame. So stick around, because I know there were a lot of questions in the chat, and we'll get to those after this next panel discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mike, to talk with the program leaders from the different communities. But I know everyone can really, if we could have virtual claps or virtual, thank yous for saying that to y'all for joining us today.
Great, thank you, Keisha. Thank you, Talon, Lukey. Thank you, everyone. I think that was a really, really rich discussion. And the Aspen Institute and certainly the Forum for Community Solutions are all about values-based leadership. And that was a takeaway I heard loud and clear from youth and young adults leaders saying, we need values-based leadership and in our communities, in our nation. So grateful for you for all of that. And I'm also grateful to be joined today by 4 folks who were with us back in May as program and systems leaders from communities building these types of summer youth employment programs. So we're joined by Farah Farnese, Senior Director of External Relations with the Philadelphia Youth Network, Shana Hayward, Vice President of Programs with Connect Detroit, Joe McLaughlin, Director of Research and Strategy for the Boston Private Industry Council, and Lori Collier, with the Director of the Los Angeles Opportunity Youth Collaborative at the Alliance for Children's Rights. So thank you all for being back here. When you were in discussion with CLASP and AFCS back in May, we were scrambling to try and figure out how to get these programs running this summer. how did the first question, just for everybody, we can do a go around, is how has this summer gone for you? What did your plans look like in implementation? What happened? Farah, we can start with you.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I would say that Philadelphia really stepped up and came together to implement summer programming that exceeded our expectations. We really set out with the bold goal of keeping the number of young people that we wanted to serve, and serving them even in a massive shift to a virtual setting. And I'm happy to share that we met about 70% of our goal. We're still finalizing numbers, but that's where it's looking like we'll land. And so, you know, as an entire city, our funders, our providers, even our young people kind of stepped up and pivoted with us as much as it was. And I think we all moved swiftly to be able to do that. And we really saw just everyone kind of come together. And it was a really great moment as we reflected on the summer, of showing what it looks like when you have a coordinated system of partners, that even though we had over 100 different unique individual organizations working together, we were still able to get something done. And what that took to get there was really great.
Thank you, Farah. Shana, what happened in Detroit?
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having us back again. I'm really excited to share the Detroit story. And now that we're on the other side of what was really a heavy lift, we had to think about what were all of the things we needed to shift for the program, right? And put together a quality, meaningful experience for our young people that was going to be virtual. So there was that. But at the same time, and we did that successfully. We felt like we really had something the young people got something out of this summer. But while we were doing that, we also had to think about what were the structures of support that we needed to put in place for our partners, for our staff, for our young people, to be able to successfully navigate a virtual experience. And then at the same time, we can't just have blinders on to just our program and what we wanted to do when we have this whole context of what's happening in our environment, right? And so we kind of had to deal with all three of these things and juggle those balls of a solid program, solid set of supports, and pausing to deal with what's happening in the context with the economic instability that came, the COVID pandemic, and then the racial injustice situations that our young people really took the mantle with and ran with. And so while they're doing that, as Luki laid out, doing that, and then still trying to navigate a summer job and all the other things going on, it was a lot. But at the end of the day, as I said in our board meeting this morning, the juice was worth the squeeze. So that's how I would sum it up.
That's great to hear. And indeed, it is a lot. And I know it's a lot that's still going on right now every day. And so grateful that you're making time to be with us. Lori, how about in Los Angeles? What's the story there? You're on mute.
You'd think this many months in, I'd remember that, but every time. We have had crazy amounts of collaboration here in Los Angeles. We have 7 workforce development boards, and when we left off, we talked about the budget deficit LA County was having. That's $1 billion. And their first county budget didn't have any money included. So in June, we started advocating. There was different groups that came together that advocated to the Board of Supervisors about why youth programming is so important, especially now. We had 5 youth advocates testify to the Board of Supervisors about what work programs do for young people and how unemployment is impacting their current lives. And that led to $20.8 million fully funding our program in mid-July. And so it then took a little bit of time to get that money out. And so our programming is year-round programming, not just summer programming. So we've kind of gotten it off the ground and it's moving along. And what we have heard back from young adults has been overwhelmingly positive. They've reported they've enjoyed the virtual activities, they've been engaged, they've found and reported significant value in the work readiness training that they've been experiencing. And the biggest feedback we've heard from young people has been challenges around, generally around internet connectedness and technology being for everyone. And the staff have reported that youth that are engaged on a mobile device just don't get the full experience. And so there's definitely a digital divide that's happened. And they also mentioned the internet connectivity being the second biggest challenge. So I think those are kind of pretty good things. And as we move along, I think we'll still continue learning.
Absolutely. And congratulations on that advocacy win, Lori.
Thank you. It was huge. So we're very thankful.
Joe, how did this summer go in Boston? We heard a little bit about it.
Sure. I think similar to the other cities, we proved it can be done. So Boston set, a pretty ambitious target to have as many jobs and opportunities for youth as we did last year, and the mayor really gave us that charge. And where I work, the Boston PIC, we manage a private sector component of the mayor's campaign. So we're one intermediary along with city agency and other partners, and we all pulled together. It was largely virtual. I'd say it was probably over 90% virtual. The accounting's still yet to be done, but we had, as you say, pretty close to well over 6,000 youth engaged in some type of activity over summer. So it's really, really pretty phenomenal. I think what's interesting about it is we proved that high school students could do virtual internships. And I think the last panel kind of demonstrated that they're ready for this new economy we're in. High school students can be knowledge workers. We moved a pretty substantial amount of money as well. So in Boston, a lot of students were earning $12.75 an hour, a minimum wage for 25 hours a week. So there's substantial paychecks on a weekly basis that students were able to earn. And the key is they did have to earn it. So if you didn't do all the hours, you didn't get the full pay. So I think we taught some good habits along the way as well. And then I'd say most importantly with when we started with COVID, and then obviously with the George Floyd murder and the racial protests that followed, we kind of created an opportunity for youth to build communities, both with their peers and adults. And I think as it came out in the panels and even on this discussion, we really needed that, as a city, as a country. And I think we created great opportunities for youth to come together, so they not only kind of develop the work readiness skills and financial literacy skills that we all try to do as workforce development organizations, but we were able to kind of also kind of provide some emotional and mental health with our adults and relationships. So, all in all, it was, good feedback from our employers and our youth as well. There were challenges, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it's really pretty tremendous thing that we pulled off.
Yeah, well, congratulations to all of you. I mean, I think this is just extraordinary, multiple challenges that everyone is wrestling with, and definitely want to dive into some of this. Coming back to what do we know about virtual internships in a minute, but before that, a question for everyone: what are 2 or 3 lessons that you learned this summer, either long term as you're thinking for next year if it's that far ahead, or that you're thinking about, to Lori's point, that this is year-round work that each of your organizations is working on, work and education are year-round? What are 2 or 3 lessons that you've learned or takeaways?
I can jump in and start. I think, Lori actually hit on one of them, which is this digital literacy and digital divide. And so as we recognize that this is really not just a COVID-19 shift, but really a future of work shift, knowing that we need to figure out how to address that for the young people in our programs. I think, echoing Joe, we showed that young people can show up and do this type of work. So we know that it's possible, but then we need to break that digital divide. And then also, what are setting standards for virtual internships? I think we did a lot of work pre-COVID, pre-virtual on how are we regulating safety? What are best practices when young people are in offices? And I think the next phase for us is really defining what that looks like for employers. And then finally, my third lesson is really identifying where we're losing young people along the way. By shifting to digital, we actually were able to collect much more information about the touch points for young people getting into our programs, when they're invited to submit documentation, and how many young people are falling off along the way. And so in Philadelphia, we're really trying to dive into the numbers. We're engaging about 4 young people for every 1 slot filled. And so we need to figure out how do we resolve that gap, which could be digital divide, but we recognize that that's kind of similar information that we're seeing across programs. And so what are we doing to address that from a youth perspective?
One of the things we learned here in Los Angeles is that more youth wanted virtual opportunities than we had originally thought. We thought it would be a little bit more balanced of traditional work experience and virtual, and it's really turned out to be more youth wanted virtual opportunities than we had ready and available for them. And so now we're kind of digging in to see like what other virtual opportunities can we create. Similar to what Farah was saying, it's like, what are the protocols around that? Because virtual work experience isn't for everyone. So trying to figure out like what that could look like to meet young people where they are. And advertising that to our partners to say like, you know, do you have a project or are there things that young people can bring, and figuring out like how to reimagine that is definitely work that we have to do in the future.
Yeah, I'd say some of the lessons that we learned is that the programs that had a mix of activities, and particularly interactive activities, seem to work the best. You know, small group check-ins were needed. They needed an icebreaker to kind of help form that community. We also know that the youth seem to really like career exploration activities. So lunch and learns, they could meet other people in the organization, even outside their kind of small mentorship group. That we found that was very engaging, and just being very intentional about how to engage youth even in the project work. So I think when youth had a chance to kind of select projects that were kind of near and dear to their current interest, it definitely helped overall with engagement. And then the last one is, you know, these kind of blend into best practices too. But I think, you know, kind of early check-ins, and not necessarily early, but morning check-ins, where youth can, you know, they see the goals for either the day or the week, and there's some structure to it. We just found that, you know, we need to provide structure to this. And a lot of these things we kind of picked up quickly in the first week or two, and, you know, try to adjust as we go, but certainly are things that will carry going forward. I think you're on mute, John.
Not that we didn't have enough to do, but the importance of really broadening our perspective about it, and not just focusing on the jobs program that we wanted to do. So really being mindful of, we have to step back and other things that are going on, and how do we do that? So creating space for that, despite what our own agendas and our own goals are. Young people need to talk about what's happening in their lives. So there was that. Building in the support needed for the adults that are in this work, from self-care to just capacity building, skill building around the tech that we need to be able to navigate, to be able to help the young people to navigate. And then assumptions that we make about young people and their savviness with the technology, right? We all think, oh, you know, they all got this, they're on their phones all the time. But it really is a spectrum of the skill sets that young people have with just interacting with the internet, getting onto Zoom, you know, all of that. They have to learn it somewhere. It's not just, we say they're digital natives, but they still have to learn these things. So there was that. And then finally, I think the biggest lesson for us and was really creating a space, virtual or not, for connections and relationship building for our young people. And so we added a companion curriculum to the virtual online platform that we had in place, where there was an intentional space to come together with the facilitator for conversations and connections. And we really focused on building around the social emotional learning competencies this summer through that curriculum.
That's great, and it's really critical in these types of programs to create that space for connection. We heard that from young people as they were talking, and that we heard Taylor talking before about addressing the technology challenges, and so that's the whole community of adults supporting young people supporting each other, and adults. And Joe, I love what you said about morning check-ins too. Makes me think of what's a common best practice in for workplaces broadly as folks have moved to an online environment, which is just stand-up meetings first thing in the morning. So that's a good way to keep relationships as well as to build sort of a very specific work readiness practice. So what's on the next horizon for each of you as you're, I know some programs are wrapping up, some programs that you've secured funding for year round are getting started in Los Angeles. How are you thinking about this work with other immediate priorities for the fall, or planning for the future beyond that?
Happy to start again with the round robin. We're really looking at what does this mean for school year. I think in Philadelphia, they are still virtual at least through November. And so, while we definitely had heard feedback of young people jumping in to do virtual, we're also starting to hear feedback of kind of being zoomed out. And so trying to figure out how we build up plans for that engagement. How do we build out opportunities for, if we are still virtual, for that real engagement with young people, what you were saying, Mike and Joe, about building space to connect and not just kind of doing the work and following the tasks is something that we're really looking at. I had mentioned trying to figure out the standards of virtual internships so that we can engage with more employers and get more employers engaged as we move through the school year. We're projecting to have, several hundred new opportunities that are going to be offered throughout the school year that were never offered before, based off of the lessons that we've learned from this summer program.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, I think the challenge is how do we kind of integrate some of this into the hybrid and remote school models that we anticipate this fall. So, I mean, I think one of the things that we would like to do is work with high schools to kind of get some of this, some of our activities into the curriculum, into the school day, just knowing that, by 3, 4 o'clock, when we normally do a lot of after school workshops, that's going to be difficult, in a lot of different school environments this year. So how do we do it? How do we work with teachers to kind of bring in some of this, this programming that could be very engaging to students? So we think of it as a way, how does it complement what our teachers are trying to do to engage students? How can we help them? The great thing is we've, the employers, came out of this pretty energized. So I think there's great opportunities for them to, work with us on career panels, potentially have some mentoring programs as well. And, it's pretty exciting to be able to build off this. And hopefully what we learned we did a lot more project-based work this year. Our own organization staff was more heavily engaged. So we just, even as a staff, we learned a lot more. And I think that kind of gives us a chance to do some of these shorter term virtual internship projects over the school year, and hopefully students can earn a little bit more stipend, a little bit more pay, to kind of get them that career exposure that they need.
Very similar to Shauna and Farah here in Los Angeles, LAUSD is going to do after school programming that's open up to all their students to support young people. And that's currently being recruited for right now. And we're also going to try piloting working with an AJCC or America's Job Center of California, and linking them to a community college to do some of the career exploration I think Joe talked about earlier, is to kind of expose them to the options and then link them to that community college to kind of have it be a seamless transition to school enrollment. So we'll start that in September too. So we've got a couple of things that we're working on. And if they go well, how do we replicate that?
Yeah. And I think one thing that we're thinking about is, this summer, COVID took us by storm, right? We were April, May figuring out what we were going to do. Well, now that we're here and in it, it's not going to go away. It's not going to disappear. So knowing what we know now, we can have much more foresight into planning for next summer, knowing that we are not going to be able to go back to the way things were. We have a whole component of our program that's 1,000 kids that puts 14 and 15-year-olds through our junior police and fire cadet program into nursing homes, right? So we know that's going to be off the table for any foreseeable future. So how do we begin to think about alternative experiences that are still meaningful, that are still quality? How do we begin to think about and prepare for a mixture of maybe virtual, in-person, face-to-face experiences? So a lot to think about, and now we have a little bit more luxury of time to build on some of the lessons from this summer and be more intentional about how we move forward.
Thank you, Shanna. Thanks, everyone. So we've got a few more minutes left here before we'll bring back Keisha and the rest of our panel for discussion. I wanted to probe a little bit on a theme. Farah, you identified what I think we all agree is an important next step in the learning agenda for the field, which is what are the characteristics of a quality virtual internship or virtual work-based learning experience. I think one aspect that we heard, I heard from multiple of you, including Joe, was that project-based can be an important component of that. Are there other things that you think we've identified right now, or what are some emergent ideas about what works or what doesn't work in a virtual internship or employer-based learning experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think one early lesson learned, at least for Philadelphia, is we're really trying to define the difference between more of the project-based, task-based career exposure work, which is kind of that online digital, like learning about things and doing things, versus actually working with an employer for like what a more traditional type of internship if you were in the office, and separating the difference between the compensation structures of incentives really being structured well when you're doing, hey, we're going to do activities, we're going to do task-based things, a little bit more on the education side, that really being a setup structure for incentive-based learning. And then setting real clear guidelines on what it means for wage-based learning and what the expectations are for young people, to make sure that we're not saying that a young person's getting paid for 4 hours when they answered 2 emails, right? And how are we making sure that like we're structuring that in a little bit more of a formal way, is something we've definitely learned. I think that one of my colleagues actually is on the webinar, and she sent over some of this student survey data, and what I'm seeing is as much as we're seeing that mobile is less of an experience, over 82% of our participants said that that's how they engaged in summer programming that was digital. So while we know that there is a disconnect, the large majority of young people who were engaging with us were engaging through their cell phones. And so I think that that's a real interesting perspective for us, especially as we're thinking about virtual internships. I think we can do online learning on a mobile device, but an internship, you really do need, I think, that computer. And so how does that impact kind of how we're building out our plans and how we're partnering with schools who are now starting to release the Chromebooks? I've been basically saying, like, please make sure that you're opening it up past what school is so that young people can stay engaged. And so having those conversations is really important right now too.
Thank you. Anyone else have ideas on this theme of what we're learning about those, particularly with the virtual employer-based experiences? Go ahead, Joe.
One thing that we're trying to figure out the balance of is we know that students really enjoyed small group work and kind of bouncing ideas off their peers and working on a project together, but they also really like self-paced work as well. And I think when we kind of go back into the school year, not having to necessarily be on a Zoom from 3 to 5 every day, having time, being able to work independently as well, is sort of the balance that we're going to have to try to find out for those that, for the wage-based jobs, as Farah was saying, that are going to be with employers. So the balance between self-paced and group, I think is going to be something that we still need to learn from. And we're still debriefing, as I'm sure a lot of the sites are. We just finished, and there's several rounds, so there's still a lot of lessons to be learned.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thanks everyone, and stay up because I see Keisha, and I think now we're going to bring up the full group so hearing from adults, youth, and young adults. So if you other speakers can turn your video back on, and we'll spend most of the rest of our time together in dialogue and discussion, building on these themes. Keisha, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, I've been monitoring the chat, everyone. And Joe, your last point was a question that I'm going to actually first direct to the youth and young adults. Are y'all up just yet? Yep, you're back up. Okay, good. So the question was really about time on Zoom and your internships. I know some of you were doing actually community work. So maybe Johnson, if you start, you know, how did you feel the balance was this summer between meetings, being online versus independent work on your own? What was the ratio, the hours? People want to get to know a little bit more about how the program was structured.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually glad you brought this up. So to give a little bit of background of my internship this summer, it was a full-time internship working from home. There were laptops provided from Vertex where we had to log on every day from 9 and our day would end at 4 and it would be 35 hours a week. And so to answer your question, initially when we first started off, it was quite overwhelming. And there was a lot of independent work along with a lot of I guess research that we had to do independently, and all the Zoom meetings that, you know, on top of all that, it was pretty hard to manage and complete everything. However, touching base on what I said about community earlier, it was right after the first week, or I guess first and a half week, one of the interns had mentioned that, hey, like I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and I just spoke with a few of my cohort members, and they're feeling the same way. I was wondering if we could kind of address this. And immediately they had a Zoom meeting and, you know, they asked for everyone's opinion and everyone sort of basically came to the conception that, yeah, it is quite a lot of work and a lot of Zoom meetings. And we have to try to find the balance just to make sure everyone is able to find the balance correctly. I'm sorry. So shortly after that, the workload we were given was a lot less. And we were also given more time to complete the work independently. The Zoom meetings, they were cut back a little bit. However, if it was quite important, whether it was like a panel or a networking Zoom call, those were kind of given a few days a heads up so we can kind of plan ahead. And from there, it was just more of kind of finding the balance yourself. And I personally found the balance to be pretty well after the first and a half week. And yeah, I think I'm just gonna wrap it up there because I realize I'm rambling.
Oh, that's okay. You did answered the question. Justice or Taylor, you mentioned both the transition to virtual. There was a question just about, did you feel more productive in a virtual setting or in person? And I know, Taylor, some of your work was actually doing work out in the community, but talk a little bit about that.
For me, I feel like I'm a little bit more productive virtually because it gives me time to work by myself and it allows me to, you know, find research easier, or if I need to, you know, look through my files. In person, it was pretty nice, but I found myself getting distracted a lot of the times by my peers during summer programs or any program that I'm part of. So I feel like I'm more productive virtually.
Good. Justice?
The Philadelphia Youth Network really provided like checkpoints for us. It was really nice. And they gave us emails like, oh, this is the next track that you're going to be working on. Here's the next assignment you're going to be working on. It was really good to give us in moderation. But each internship was a little bit different depending on like if you're working at, you know, say Westgold or, you know, Bank of America. My internship was really, of course, a lot different, but the value was just the same. I know Philadelphia Youth Network was really trying to make sure that we got the same value or even greater, even if it's virtual or in person. So it was still a really amazing internship. I didn't feel overwhelmed. Again, sometimes we did get distracted because we are on, you know, we're online. So sometimes, you know, sometimes your phone rings or sometimes you get a ding and you're like, you know, you're just drawn away. But overall, it was really an amazing internship. And Philadelphia Network really provided like checkpoints that really gave us reassurance, which was really helpful. Because seeing that you did, oh, I finished that assignment, gives you a little bit of motivation to keep going throughout the whole internship for the summer. So, yeah.
Good, thank you. So this next question is for anyone, because really was about recruitment. We could start with the youth and young adults, but anyone can answer it. For young people who haven't been, it's about recruitment, been involved, how would you recruit? How would you recruit your peers? And for those of y'all who are operating programs or ministering systems, what are some of your best recruitment strategies? So anyone could jump in. Taylor, look, were you jumping in first about this recruitment?
I was just gonna say social media, definitely, because I know a lot of my fellow members of the programs that I'm a part of, they use social media a lot. So I would definitely say social media, and spread the word. Like, just make sure that it's known that your program exists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm going to hop in really quickly as well. I think, reaching out to the students and kind of figuring out what they're interested in would be quite beneficial. Whether it's, or what they want to pursue in a career also. So for me, I wanted to work in the medical field. However, in the medical field, it's not just playing doctor. You also have to learn how to network and how to socialize and how to work in the corporate field. So by doing so, you can kind of recruit students to, for example, my internship, and say like, hey, though you want to work in a hospital and stuff, you could gain a lot of transferable skills from here, and then like basically start up, their career path from a small internship.
Thanks.
I would have to say social media too, just because social media, when you're offering online work anyways, is easier to offer it on an online platform. And it's really easy for the youth to engage in it. The main social media platforms I would suggest is Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and probably Twitter.
Great.
And Instagram. Also
Oh,
Instagram.
yes, and Instagram, of course. So that was a follow-up question. So you answered that follow-up question. Any of the program leaders, the city leaders, want to answer your recruitment strategies or share?
We've been using youth to do outreach engagement as a strategy. We've seen a huge, youth reaching out to other young people it's just much better. In addition to social media, and trying to figure out like, how do we tag different posts to make sure it translates over. Do not have the answers yet, but it's definitely shown improvement.
Good. All right. Well, so another question, and this I'll switch over to some of the program leaders. There's a question about learning more about the standards, and I think Farah, you talked a little bit about this, but we wanted to hear more about the standards that you all developed for the different components, and if you did any digital badges or anything like that for technical skills.
Yeah, so what Philadelphia Youth Network did as a system coordinator was we developed basically an incentive plan, an incentive structure that we shared with our entire provider network, basically giving guidelines about length of tasks and how that was connected to the monetary compensation. We then, as an organization, developed out a full curriculum that anybody could use, which we joked was like kind of the off-the-shelf model that aligned with our incentive-based strategy. And this was really more career exposure. It was not necessarily connected to any like formal badging or anything like that. So our providers could use that, or they could use our incentive template to build out their own program. And what some partners did was they either had pre-apprenticeship programs or training programs that they could tap into, that they converted the work of those trainings into our incentive guide. And then that's really how we had the system work. So we had a variety of different incentive plans, and we had about 140 different programs across the system. And I would say, this is ballpark, but over 50% created some of their own programming. And so if anybody's interested about like our actual template, feel free to reach out to me. I have no problem kind of sharing what we did. It's way too detailed to go in here, but that's how we did it here.
I have a feeling some people will. So Shauna, let's jump to you, because I know you put in the chat, you said maintaining standards for how folks earn the stipend is key. So kind of elaborate on what you were talking about in the chat and how you all were thinking about standards and achievement this summer.
Structure to what Farah described, we built out a program design that our partners could use, or they could customize their own. And many customized and many used our own, and many did a hybrid of some of their own stuff, some of what we had built out in terms of the program activities. And so we set up a series of benchmarks based on activities, and we didn't want to get too granular, but we needed a structure to work with, right? And so there were essentially 4 activities a week in the online model and 4 activities a week in our social emotional learning model. And so each activity was worth $25. You could earn $100 if you did your online stuff. You could earn $100 if you did your social emotional learning stuff. And so it was literally, you could earn $200 a week if you hit your benchmarks, and $1,000 total for the summer. So then finding a balance to kind of make those activities meaningful and worth $200, that's kind of where kind of some of the tension comes into play. And because of the spectrum of skill sets, what might take one young person 2 hours to do might take another young person 30 minutes to do, right? And so that translates, if we think of it, at a wage-based system, some kids making, $10 an hour, some kids making $50 an hour. And so we really kind of had to shift our thinking when we moved to this virtual, that, okay, it's not an hourly kind of thing. It's about the experience and about hitting those benchmarks. So we can't limit everything to sort of a time-based framework.
Okay, great. Joe, do you want to add anything?
Sure. About half of our jobs are employer paid. So the employers are paying wages kind of on an hourly timesheet basis. So that didn't change drastically. But within our internal programs, we did go more towards a stipend approach this year, very similar to Detroit. That was kind of based on hours for completing certain activities. We also did something interesting this year under the city's leadership. We actually paid students to take college courses this year and do professional development. So we were tracking, their attendance in courses, and then also, their attendance in kind of mentoring workshops and other and work readiness workshops as well. And that was all stipend based as well.
Good. Lori, if you want to jump in, if not, I'm going to ask one more question of the youth and young adults.
No, we have 3 different options we developed, and because we just launched, I have no information to get back to you yet.
Stay tuned, everyone. Stay tuned. And again, we'll be sure to have the contact information and some of the resources that the panelists mentioned, because I know they'll be really helpful to the field. So I'll do this last question, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Mike. This is a question for our youth and young adults, whoever wants to start. How have your experiences compared with your peers, especially those who weren't engaged in a summer youth employment program like yourself, or who were doing something else this summer? So everybody, just share how have you noticed your experiences different than your peers, and just as you looked like you were ready to start. So go ahead.
So for me, it was all the opportunity. So during one internship led to another, and led to another, opposed to like someone else who wasn't really in the PYN program, or doing something entirely. So I did an internship at Bank of America, which is amazing. I had an amazing time. I met a lot of people all over the nation, actually. I was meeting people from like LA, Washington, D.C. It was really like a monumental thing for me. And it just led to another thing, right? I'm looking into other internships. I just applied to an internship at JP Morgan Chase. So it's really about like what leads to another thing. And I heard my other friends like, oh my God, how are you already starting your applications for another internship? They're like, I was just, networking and really trying to hone on the things I was doing now in my internship that I had currently, and then try to lead into another one to transition much more better, instead of like having like this wait period of applying for other internships. So this was basically one leads to another, and that's how I really got going for this,
Thank you, Justice. I mean, for those of us who have been doing this for a while and know the research, what Justice said is exactly how many of us got here, More work experience leads to more work experience, leads to long-term employment. And this is why this is such a critical point in time in which we need to make sure we engage young people. But Johnson or Taylor or Lukey, if you want to jump in, how have your experiences differed from some of your peers?
My experience have differed from like a lot of people said, it's just the experiences that you gain from being a part of things like this. You're able to meet people in different areas that are doing a lot of different things that they can teach you. And it's all about the mentorships. So I feel as if I've just basically was able to bump into a lot of the right people that continue to point me in the right ways. And that has helped develop myself and also the things that I'm doing. Even this is what I also tried to implement and when we're coming up with different programs and strategies within the summer program, how we can continue to provide experiences like this to the youth so that they can continue to go about those same type of journeys, meeting people in different places and learning different things so that they can continue to expand their knowledge in themselves.
Thank you. Anyone else want to jump in? Johnson or
Yeah, I was
Taylor?
gonna hop in really. Oh, go ahead, Taylor.
It's okay. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off of what Justice and Lukey said, just networking and finally building a solid foundation of networks where I can kind of reach out to whenever I have struggles or whenever I have a question. It's great to, be able to have sort of like a safety net, knowing that I always have someone that I can go to, and how that compares to my peers. I've seen a lot of my peers use this time to do a lot of self-care and take care of themselves mentally and make sure that, while they're not able to work or maybe not able to be in school present, in person, they still are able to take the time to, disconnect from all the negativity from the outside of their home and still relax and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I guess I will have to piggyback off of what the past three speakers were saying. I feel like, connections and opportunities was the biggest thing that I gained, and that was different from my peers. My peers, they've actually started working on a lot of their career paths, because most of the people that are a part of my different programs, they have graduated high school, so now they're going on to college or going on to start their careers. So I feel like for me, it different in a way where we were both able to like have opportunities and start our journeys, but in different ways.
Good, thank you all. So I heard a lot of good stuff there, and it just validates why youth employment and summer youth employment is so critical. Someone told me a long time ago, your network is your net worth, and what you all shared is starting that early is critical, and it'll support you throughout your career journey and throughout your life journey. So I really appreciate y'all sharing a little bit of the insights. Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap us up before I give us our charge, and we go.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks again, everyone, so much for being here. Really grateful for your insights, your energy. This has just left me feeling really optimistic, actually, about the ways that communities have been able to meet the challenge of this summer. Lots more work to do, but I think lots of themes that we've heard, but one of those was that distanced SYEP programs can work. Young people saying, we heard you say you had good experiences. There's still a lot to learn about what virtual internships or digital work-based learning or digital employer-based experiences are, but we have some emergent insights in that. And I know that's going to be an exciting area of the field that we at the Aspen Forum for Community of Solutions are going to focus on later this fall when we're updating our digital SYEP toolkit that we released sort of a prototype of back in the spring that we'll release another more detailed version of later in the summer. We heard that the technology challenges in terms of hardware and digital access that we knew were in front of us are real, but not insurmountable. And I think actually lots more to learn about that. What can we do with smartphones or devices, and how can we bridge the digital divide? We heard, as Talon said, we need to listen to young people and consult them in these designs. And we know that young people can often be the best messengers for these types of programs in outreach or in teaching digital skills to close that, to help everyone adapt to these new virtual settings. And finally, I think we got some real insights from Luki, from others about how these work experiences, people's journeys and these different types of programs are occurring in the broader context of community, where we have the COVID pandemic, where we have the economic crisis, and we have social movements demanding racial justice and a more equitable society for all. And so that is the work that we're all committed to. And I'm so grateful to be with everybody and the leadership that's demonstrated on this call. So with that, Keisha, I will turn it back to you to close us out with some next steps.
Yes, everyone, we put this slide together just so you all could, we could share a little bit of next steps of what we're thinking about nationally in support of what so many local communities have been able to do, have been grappling with, and also have just persevered through, and pulling everything that we heard from Johnson, from Luki, from Justice, from Talon. We're going to keep that with us. But what we've been doing and what we have to continue to do is to turn what you all said into our advocacy. So continue to advocate for state and local policies. You know, the wins in LA was really good, and we want to be able to replicate that. So we need to transfer those lessons across, as well as thinking about how we can keep young people connected, engaged during the crisis and after the crisis. We don't know when the pandemic will end, but we do know that virtual learning and virtual employment and work readiness strategies do work. And so we need to document that and some of the innovations. And you heard Mike say some of the work that Aspen will be doing. I also want to mention that several of us, including U.S. Conference of Mayors, Aspen, and CLASP, and likely National Youth Employment Coalition and others, will be putting together a survey of the field to document what happened this summer. Some of the challenges we heard about: wages versus stipends, equipment, technology, but also all of the innovations that we heard from. There were good experiences, and this can work. So we're going to be documenting that so that you all could use it in your own advocacy locally or at the state level, and we can use it to continue our national work. And so one of the things that we're working on with a number of organizations is really to think about large-scale investments for year-round and employment pathways. We've been working on this, but now we see that we're in a crisis, a recession, as well as this global pandemic. So we're really advocating for federally funded subsidized jobs and program for unemployed and underemployed youth and young adults, including a massive infusion for summer youth employment program like the kind we had when I was a teenager. So stay connected with us. You'll get all the information from the panelists, but we want to give a shout out to our Reconnecting Youth campaign, which focuses on opportunity youth. And you can join us for updates, and we'll send this in follow-up information, and sign up for the Opportunity Youth Forum newsletter. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you were just as inspired as I was. And I'm going to take a couple of the quotes that folks said to heart and continue it on with my own advocacy. So I appreciate your time, and you all have a great afternoon.
You too.
You too.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you. Have a good one,
All
guys.
right.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.